How would you get to Heathrow Airport by public transport? Probably the quickest way would be the Heathrow Express or the Piccadilly line. But for a brief period in the 1950s, the quickest way was to go to Waterloo and change for a helicopter. It's kind of a funny story. These days, you check in at the airport. Makes sense, right? Well, that wasn't always the case. You see, it used to be the case that you'd check in at a separate facility. When I say separate facility, I don't mean, say, in a different building at the airport. I mean, you'd have to go into central London, check in there, and be transported to the airport itself. And that's where Waterloo Air Terminal comes in. The terminal was opened in 1953. A lot of land had just become free on the South Bank following the closure and clearance of the Festival of Britain site on the orders of Winston Churchill. As a bonus, it was just over the road from the main line station and had its own exit from the underground. It was a striking building that I don't think would look too out of place today. It belonged to British European Airways, one of the predecessors of British Airways. What would happen was that passengers would check in here and then be taken to the airport, Heathrow, or in those days Northolt, by bus. Now, I kind of implied earlier that this arrangement didn't make sense, so I think I do need to explain the context. For one thing, car ownership was nowhere near as widespread in the early 50s as it is now, so an outer suburban airport like Heathrow was a lot harder to get to. Waterloo, by comparison, was a major rail terminus on 3 underground lines, comparatively easily reached from anywhere in London or the south of England. The system was not without its flaws. Heavy traffic could slow the bus down on its journey, resulting in a delayed flight. And it did take an awful long time. So they tried something really new and exciting: a helicopter service. At this time, helicopters were thrilling and futuristic. One day, everyone would have their own helicopter. British Rail seriously contemplated rebuilding a number of their central London termini to incorporate helipads, because they were absolutely certain that this helicopter thing was really going to take off and make trains obsolete. We now know it didn't quite pan out like that, but hindsight is 20/20. What was my point? Oh yes, from 1955, BEA began operating a helicopter shuttle service from Waterloo to Heathrow. They had the space, the South Bank being basically empty at the time. The helicopters used were Westland Sikorsky S-55 Whirlwinds, or, in layman's terms, Harold from Thomas the Tank Engine. Due to the proximity of the river, they were fitted with floats. Sadly, this service wasn't a huge success. Helicopter tickets were pretty expensive. The service lasted less than a year before being withdrawn. By that time, the writing was also on the wall for the Waterloo Air Terminal. London County Council wanted to redevelop the land, and BEA wanted a more conveniently located terminal. So, in 1957, after just over 4 years in operation, the terminal was closed. It would be replaced by the West London Air Terminal in Kensington, a larger, more convenient and considerably uglier building, which would itself be closed in 1974. It's now roughly where the Sainsbury's is. As for the site in Waterloo, that was built over and became part of the Shell Centre. Now that too has gone, and there's no sign of the old terminal. Talk about a fly-by-night operation. Hi all, hope you enjoyed this airborne episode of Tales from the Tube. If you did, it would please me greatly if you would like, share, or even subscribe. And I'll see you soon for another Tale from the Tube.